We're brought to you by the good people at DuckDuckGo. Preseason opener, Lions take a 21-16 over the G-Men. Nate Sudfeld struggled at quarterback, throwing 2 interceptions, but this guy took it to the house. Thank you, Dan Miller, right here on 97 won the ticket. Jahmyr Gibbs ran it for 19 yards and 6 carries. Jameis Williams targeted 6 times, caught 2 of them, had 1 drop of a long pass, and made a nice grab at a 2-point conversion. Tigers lose at Boston 5-2. They will play again today, 4:10 from Fenway, right here on the ticket. Matt Manning going for Detroit. At the Ticket Update Desk, I'm Jeff Lesson. For more 97 won the ticket at Odyssey.com.
Good morning. Welcome to the Hardcore Mortgage Real Estate Business Show, brought to you by Capital Mortgage Funding. We have an unbelievable panel for you. I'm Harvey Free. To the right of me, the fabulous Becky Alley.
Hey, everybody. How are you? I feel like I haven't been here in a minute.
You haven't.
My chair just sunk, too, by the way. It fell to the ground right before we went live. I fell on the ground.
We're going to get back to your all the fun stuff you've been doing around the state of Michigan. Lisa Lawson from The Office. Hey, Lisa.
Morning, everybody.
And, of course, you bring in the great Hope Williams from Keller Williams. How you doing, Hope?
Great. Thank you. And good morning, everyone.
All right,
Thank you
Hope.
for having me.
Welcome back to the show. Of course, you've done the show with us before a couple times. All right, Hope's going to share a lot of great stuff here about Southeast Michigan. We are all fired up. We had the Lions game last week.
Yeah.
Becky can talk to you a little bit about her up north accolades. You did quite a bit up there. It seemed like you were disappeared for a few weeks.
Yeah, so what's cool about it is as you get older, people are growing and doing things. And my friend has a beautiful home on Higgins Lake, so we got to spend a couple weekends in July up there. And I love going up there. Number one, it's one of the most beautiful lakes in Michigan, first and foremost. And I love their property, and I'm so happy for her and the accomplishments that her and her family have now. But it's cool to go up there and look at the real estate and how it's almost just non-existent, or the price point of some of these homes, just to get them. And, there's this street called Samoset, right, where it's, if you know Higgins Lake, Samoset.
Yeah, I know that street. Yeah.
And so the properties there, you can tell they're it's generational properties, right? They've been in the property, or in the family for quite some time, and they're up there, and they're maybe 1,000 square feet, and they're $1 million, and it's and you need a total redo on some of these homes. It's crazy, but I love going up north. It's part of being in Michigan, and why we can have the best of all the worlds. You got up 4 seasons, you can drive a couple hours, be in a totally different planet. It feels
I was just there last weekend. Spent last weekend in the Traverse City area for the same reason.
You travel quite a bit too, Lise. Come on now.
Yeah, I travel all the time.
Again,
I'm not going to lie.
I'm always where's she going today?
A little scary out there, obviously, out in Hawaii. Of course, you guys get an opportunity to go out there.
Breaks my heart.
Definitely prayers going out to the folks out there. And Hope, here in Southeast Michigan, we struggle with inventory. We're going to talk all about that this morning. We'll take your calls at 248-539-9797. Buying a home has never really been easy. It's expensive. It's confusing. It's loaded with paperwork. That's under the best circumstances, right? And then toppled with a little bit higher interest rates than normal. And, of course, that's a little scary for some folks. And then the appreciation, it just continuously is going up. People are chasing these homes and willing to overpay and stuff. But Hope, if you don't get in now, well, it's only going to be more expensive next year.
Yeah, that's the challenge, right? And the mindset shift that I think a lot of people are going to have to make is that this is not going to be another recurring situation like we had. How many years ago was that even now, right? And so that's the conversation, and the challenging conversation from a realtor to a client right now. How do you prepare yourself and understand that our market is never going to be where it is? I suggest strategizing and planning with people. Think through, even if you have occupancy, what is your fog gap type of thing if you were not able to get a place at that time? Do you have family to live with? Because these are realistic things sometimes we want to say, but on the other hand, this is the moment, if you are actually paying the most expensive rent, to shift from that situation and move from consumerism to investment.
Yeah.
I love that. And you're bringing up something that I actually was just speaking to someone late last night. You know, I worked pretty late last night while I was watching the Lions game, and I spoke to this gentleman. He's never been a homeowner, and he is currently living with family while his fiance is living with her family. So they're living apart, and they have a child together. So he's driving from Royal Oak to Sterling Heights, like almost on the regular. And it's really expensive. And so we had this conversation, and he was like, you know, the interest rates are so high, and you know, I don't know if I can afford this. And he was like, and then I took out this debt consolidation loan. He's like, and it's 20%. He was like, but I just don't want to pay the interest rates of the mortgage. And I was like, do you hear what you're saying? And I made him kind of rewind the tape a little bit. And I said, so you're not batting an eyelash on the fact that you just verbally said you're paying 29% on this consolidation loan that is now affecting your affordability of home ownership, but you're going to hesitate at paying an interest rate even at the mid to high sixes that is going to now put you guys in the same household. That's going to minimize what you're paying from two households, the gas money, all this stuff. And he was like, well, I can't find what I want for, you know, $150,000 or $200,000. I go, have you looked? Have we tried? I'm like, because right now what you're describing to me is not ideal. So and that's the problem where you're talking about, whereas we do not hesitate to take out the credit cards, take the debt consolidation loan, do the HELOC, but we talk to someone that is not investing in themselves and they're paying all this ridiculous interest, and they're like, oh my gosh, these interest rates, they're so high. And they're really not. They're really not at all. And if he wouldn't have taken out that debt consolidation loan, he probably could qualify for a $230,000 loan. However, it doesn't matter if you qualify for it. It's all about your affordability and what works best for you. So I was like, hey, you can afford a $200,000 house, but you don't want that payment. So let's pull it back. Let's find that 150 house, but it's strategizing, it's communicating, it is finding what works for you, not what someone else is doing and what they did. You got to work what's best for you.
I like that you said that communication is the number one thing that we do in our industry. Okay, so had a little conversation with a real estate agent, had trouble communicating with her. Might have left a nasty message because I didn't hear the beep and said, this lady never calls me back. Okay. So I might have gotten a little trouble with this week, but the end of the deal was, hey, communication is the key, but more so is this planning. And we're seeing that the American debt load is completely out of control right now. Talk to any underwriter or loan officer. You just said it, Becky. The debt load is just completely crazy. Borrowers' debts here in America, credit card balances hit $1 trillion. It ain't going down, and we haven't seen really anything like this in a while. So if you own a house and you are happy enough to accept that house at that price, boy, you're sitting on a ton of equity anyways, Hope.
That's the truth. And this is the conversation, especially for young families like you just described. You have to realize that you have to kind of build your nest. So your very first property may not be the dream home.
Mm-hmm. It's your starter home.
It's your starter home. But what can you do to make this the perfect home for yourself and invest in yourself? Because the money that you put in this later, with us appreciating the way we are now, you should be able to turn it around and buy and get closer to the dream home later.
Yeah. So I'm okay. And one of the things that I talked about with the same client was, I could let him know that I understood because I've lived it. I did the right thing at the wrong time. I bought a house in 2006 at the hot peak of the market.
Ditto. I built one in 2006.
Yeah, and the very next year, it completely fell apart. We're not in that same situation, though, because we're in a housing crisis. There's not enough inventory. So I couldn't control what the equity of my home did. But guess what? I made sure that I set myself up for a payment that I could afford. So therefore, my 5-year house might have turned into my 10-year house, but I still sold it or kept it as a rental. And now I was building my real estate portfolio and buying another house and using that equity to catapult myself to the next galaxy of what my life was taking me to. And in being able to communicate that with our new buyers that can't see that for themselves is key, because we've done this before. Not only are we're practicing what we preach, but we've lived it. You know, you can do the right thing at the wrong time, and you can do the right thing at the right time. But no matter what you can't beat the champ. So even in the most catastrophic housing market that we've ever seen in the history of America, right? I still came out on top.
Yeah, you
because
did.
I
So
had
did I.
my own real estate. I held on to it, and it always bounces back. And we're never going to see that ever again in our lifetime. It's a completely different situation.
Lise, let me say this before I forget this thought is it's sort of like the minor leagues. You bought that first house and you really learned how to become a homeowner
Yeah.
because there's a lots of other fees involved and cost, the maintenance of the house, the appreciation. Sort of like the minor leagues. Your first house really gets you started. You get all your at-bats in.
Mm-hmm.
And now you become this great homeowner. Your home's appreciating. You're putting improvements to it. But more importantly, you talked about the separation. This couple's engaged. They have a baby. Let's get everyone in the same house. That
Yeah.
alone, this is a living style. This is a way of life.
Yeah, I always tell people they're so worried about making their first house their dream home. And I tell people all the time, you don't know what you want until you own a home. It does not matter what you think you want. It doesn't matter how much research you do until you physically get in there. When I built my house, that was not our first home, and I literally kept for about a year all the things that I wanted my dream home to have, right? Extra outlets in my eaves so I don't have to run extension cords to plug in Christmas lights, like every little thing I wanted. And guess what? Even though I built my dream house, one thing I didn't do is do an extra 4-foot bump out on my garage, and I kick myself every day. And you know what I did? I was like,
write
well, I
that
have a
down.
3-car garage, so I don't need it, but I do. So it doesn't matter. Jump in, get a house. It doesn't have to be your forever home.
Well, I like that. And that's a good way to start off our first break here. 248-539-9797. We're going to teach you how to become a homeowner this morning. And if you're thinking about selling your house, Hope's got all sorts of great strategies. Keep it here on 97.1 The Ticket. We'll be back. Back. All righty. Welcome to the Hardcore Mortgage Real Estate Business Show. Here in our second segment. That was the fastest break. Slow the
fastest
show
break.
down.
There's like a show in between.
There's a
the
whole show going on.
The show is
We're back.
in between, and that was a quick. That was
really good.
2-minute show.
The Hardcore Mortgage Show brought to you by Capital Mortgage Funding. Of course, we are powered by Fairway Independent Mortgage Corporation. All 50 states include. If you're looking to buy a house, give us a call. We are NMLS Equal Housing Lender 2289. And of course, you can find us at 1-800-LOW-RATE, the best mortgage banker. That's where Lisa, Becky, myself, and a whole staff there. We're there all week long to help you and all weekend long. If you need to get that strong approval letter, Becky, I told some family yesterday, we don't do this word pre-approval anymore. No. It's approval now. It's like you get us your documents and you can get approved in one day, in less than a day, a couple hours. We get it, all the documents. We run it through Becky. Now you're ready to go.
Listen, there's some. I got to get something off my chest because there's a lot of the. I can't say the bad words, but
Don't say it.
Okay, I'm not gonna say the bad words, but there is a lot of we pre-approved you in 2 minutes, right? And then they're coming on. Then they end up on my desk because they really did take 2 seconds to look at this, and they're missing the most simplest of details, and deals are falling apart that
just
are
like the
under
one we just looked at.
under contract. Falling apart, missing short sales, telling people that they only have to wait a year after a short sale, just bad information out there because there's a lot, and there's some really good loan officers out there. There's some really good companies, but then there's some people that just don't know any better. So if you are one of those people that don't know any better, stop faking it because you're not going to fake it till you make it. You're doing everyone a disservice. Find the information from the people in your support staff to get the right information out to consumers, because if someone is under contract because you told them that you had the go ahead and you missed something like that, that's a huge problem. And people make mistakes and all that, and I understand, and I'm not here to rake everyone over the coals, but at the same time, if you're putting out a post that you pre-approve someone in 5 hours and that loan doesn't close because you made a mistake, then maybe you should probably pull that back and don't be so braggadocious about your 5-minute pre-approval because it looks like it.
Yeah, and there's so many ways to easily miss things as a loan officer. We ask for all this information, and we, I have somebody the other day. They really only qualify for FHA. They're W-2. They send me their W-2s, and I'm like, I need your tax returns. And they're like, why? And I'm like, sure enough, they have a side hustle.
Oh, yeah.
And they've written off like ridiculous, like $32,000 worth of
That's a
income on a
ton,
side
yeah.
hustle. Well, guess what? If you're doing an FHA loan, I can't ignore that. There's no way I could ignore that. That negative 32 grand, divide by 12, that's how much your income has been reduced. So he went from making, a decent amount of money to about $1,100 a month, and he's trying to buy a house. This is why we ask for those things. If I would have been like, here, I'll send you this pre-approval while I wait for your tax returns, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He could be out there looking, wasting an agent's time, wasting his own time, getting excited, and he can't buy. There's no way for him to buy right now.
Yeah.
There's reasons we ask for this documentation, and I know clients are like, but it's so much. It's really not that much paperwork.
No, it's not.
And this guy didn't have his taxes. He didn't do his own taxes. He had them prepped. He didn't know. It wasn't like he was trying to scam me.
Right.
He goes to, tax prep person, and of course that tax preparer does his job, which is to minimize your tax liability.
Yep.
And write off income. So
That's
he's
a whole
doing
nother
his job.
show.
And it's not like the poor borrower knew any better.
Yeah, and that's the point. They don't know what they don't know. They don't know that they are withholding information that's important. But that's why we ask these discovery questions, because getting a mortgage is a big deal.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of emotion that goes into it. And, whether it's a real estate agent is newer and they don't understand and what we're doing behind the scenes, I assure you, there's not one loan officer on the face of the planet that is consciously going to ask you for a piece of paper that we don't need. For sure. But at the same time, we have to do search and discovery because it's going to come out in the wash no matter what.
Right.
And we're here to set you up for success. But those little itty bitty details is why you've been in the business for 20 years.
Right.
Why we have the sustainability that we have, because I would much rather say, Becky, you're a little bit slow on the pre-approvals, but all your loans close, than say you're super fast and it's a hot mess and it's going to be like we're driving a stick shift for the first time every time.
Right. Well, that's the thing, because this lady is like, she's like, well, I got a pre-approval from a different lender. And I was like, well, if he can't get me the tax returns, how do you get him to the other lender? So I called him. I said, oh, you got your, he's like, I haven't been able to get him yet. He can't figure out how to download the copy, his tax report, you know what I mean? Like the whole, and I was like, okay, all I can do is warn them and say, I already know he's got a side hustle. We already know he's written off some, documents. Well, he didn't know for sure. He goes, I think he writes off some. He didn't know the amount. And I'm like, I'm not comfortable giving you an approval unless I know what we can use to qualify.
All right, making home ownership fun here. 248-539-9797.
But this isn't real stuff. This is
the
really
real
happens.
stuff.
We'll give them the real stuff.
And it affects everyone involved in the process.
Right.
Yeah.
As a buyer, would you really want to get out there with a pre-approval thinking you can afford a $250,000 house? And then you make an offer and you give an earnest money deposit and you've paid for an inspection. Okay, so we deny the loan. You get your EMD back, but you don't get your inspection money back.
Or the appraisal maybe
or you
then,
don't, Well, hopefully we didn't get that far. But yeah, if you pay for an appraisal or you pay for an inspection, you want somebody to look to see if tree roots destroyed your plumbing
Sewer line,
system.
For nothing.
Yeah.
All that money that you're spending, which could be easily $1,000, you don't get back.
Yeah.
So we're not trying to be difficult.
And it's spent in vain.
It is right.
It is
It's
in
spent
vain. And even in the situation I described, where I just kind of get a blanket statement, the other lender denied this person. They gave them a pre-approval. They're pending. They denied them. The real estate agent communicated with me and was like, "Hey, Becky, they're denying this loan. I should have went with you from the first go. Can you please look at this? Can you look at this?" And I looked at it 3 seconds later. Absolutely not. It's literally right there on the credit report. Right. There's no way to pivot around this situation. There's certain things that are hard stops on credit reports, foreclosures, bankruptcy timelines, short sales. Those are all immediate red flags, hard stops. And there are certain situations where you can get around it, like it's called extenuating circumstances, but you got to be very over document what the situation was.
And
so
there's
anyway,
only a few extenuating circumstances are accepted. Some people be like, oh, I got a divorce. That's not considered an extenuating. It's usually a medical, like a catastrophic medical event.
Yeah, but these are things that we search and discover in the beginning before we have you
can
freaking
have the
playing
conversation
hopscotch to different
Right.
houses, right? And but
This
anyway,
is someone not taking their due diligence. They pull a credit report. When we pull a credit report, information gets merged in called trade lines. And the only thing that we see in the system are current trade lines. This is somebody not taking the time to review the credit report in its entirety. They saw the trade lines, crunched the numbers, said, I can do it, and didn't actually take the time to look, because something like a short sale or a foreclosure is a closed item, and it doesn't show up
they
as a
didn't go down to the
current-
derogatory
Right.
section.
It doesn't come up as a current trade line, so they didn't take the time. And this could have easily been avoided had somebody taken a few extra moments, which I know it's old school, but to this day I print every single credit report because I don't want to miss something. And it's too easy to miss
I
something when you're
circle
scrolling.
it.
Yep,
Yeah.
you're scrolling on a screen.
Everything's perfect until it's not, Hope. That's for sure. We see that
And
quite a
that's the
bit
truth,
here.
you know, and that's a listing agent's nightmare, right?
Yeah.
You're like, and I'm sitting here thinking, I hope I don't get that client,
Right.
or any of that person's clients, 'cause
Or even
you-
a buying agent.
But
How
that's
many
why
houses?
you're calling and saying, "Hey, is this person qualified?" But then you can get the other person on the other
But
phone
what
that's
if-
like, "Yes, yes."
That's exactly
yes,
what
right.
I'm thinking, because he thinks he's done his job.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's the importance of the partnership, and why I love working with Lisa, because you know that she's doing her due diligence, and we have an opportunity to work as a team, and that's very important.
Yeah.
All right, we
Yeah.
do all programs, so that's really key too. And Becky, it's really interesting. You threw that foreclosure, maybe a short sale. I haven't seen one in a while. Now I'm double checking on the lookout for them, just because the market's been so good. And if you bought a house 2019 or before, you would think that you'd have a ton of equity in it because the homes have appreciated so much. I had some numbers here, of course, what the numbers are across Southeast Michigan, but a couple numbers that I'll throw at you is home ownership in the city of Detroit's up to like 72%. That's pretty
awesome.
cool. What else? 5-year appreciation values in Detroit up 37%. So yeah, it's sort of strange that you would run across one of those, but we do. And not only do we see short sales and foreclosures, there's a lot of moving parts in a transaction. Divorce, it's creeping up on us, folks. Come on, the trillions of amount of debt out there. There's a lot of things out there. It's a struggle for some families. Again, relationships are sometimes very difficult. And sure enough, a divorce judgment that I got this week, all of a sudden it says on there, he's responsible to pay for the current mortgage payment, maybe the lot rental, maybe the status quo. And when you're going through a divorce and you're trying to buy a house, yeah, we really need to know what's going to go on. What's going to be on that divorce judgment if you're planning on closing in the next month and that divorce judgment's going to come our way. Again, I start reading it and I'm like, wait a minute here. This is not what we set you up for. So we, again, have to do some changes and stuff and make it work for you. So offering all types of mortgage programs are key also to having successful home ownership.
Yeah, we could literally do a whole show on divorce situations and these one-off situations. But the truth be told, like the overall mortgage default is at all-time lows.
Right.
But you are going to see these kinds of things because we're still coming from that tailwind of COVID, and people were not essential. They went through some really hard times. And this individual that had the short sale, it happened July of last year because it was a tailwind, and they got behind and they got out of control, so they had to do a quick short sale. I mean, things happen, and no one's here to judge, but we're here to come with a plan of action. And when it comes to divorces as well, like if someone is assigned the property, I had one where it was a veteran, they were assigned the property, the wife inherited the property, she's not the veteran. You have to go through a very rigorous when it comes to VA to get that mortgage assumed. So they weren't accepting her payments. He had a COVID forbearance set up, so it comes all these things. So now here she is wanting to buy another house. We can't obtain the payment history because it was never under her name. So we went through some things, and we came out on top because I was confident in our abilities to do it, because I knew that there was a way to get this done, and we did get it done. But if you're working with someone that doesn't know the ins and outs of all these little itty bitty teeny tiny things, you're not going to come up with that same success. That same success story.
Sometimes it's a very small detail that can destroy a transaction. And I hate to say that, but it's the
true.
truth.
It is true.
It could be, everyone's like, oh, we're great. And 98% of it is. And all of a sudden there's this one little thing, and it's easy to overlook. And if you don't take time, which is like, everyone's like, I can do an approval in 2 hours. Well, good for you. And I'm thinking, what are all the things that are you missing? You know what I mean? Sometimes, like Becky said, it might take us a day or two, but we're doing our due diligence and we're reviewing every little thing that you send. And sometimes I withhold an approval. Like I have one right now that I know we need tax returns. The person she used to do a lot of side hustle work, and I need to see what we've written off, and she has no idea. So I keep saying, I'm like, until I know, I can't really accurately calculate income. I can't see what we're allowed to use to qualify you.
There's a lot of pressure.
Right.
There's a lot
And
of
we
pressure.
get it, because if it isn't us sending the pre-approval, they'll be like, oh, well, I got a pre-approval from
Exactly.
the XYZ company
if you
online.
don't do it, someone else will.
Right, and they put the
you just
information
can't
in
do
and
that.
it spits out whatever they want it to say. But just because it says that, just because you weren't online and you told them what you made and they gave you a pre-approval, doesn't mean that's actually what you're making. You know what I mean? No one's reviewing this. It's not.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that it's not worth the. Well, it really isn't. It's not worth the paper it's written on.
I'm going to do a shameless plug. At Capital Mortgage Funding, one of the things that I pride us on, and again, I know we're not the only ones out there, but we are your real life loan officer. We have seen it. We have done it. We know how to. We pull everything apart just to put it back together. Why? Because we don't have fallout. Because we're looking for the problem before it is a problem. We're fixing it behind the scenes. We're addressing it before we even send it to the processor, before we even send it to the underwriter. We're not waiting for our support staff to find the problem. We already found it and we fixed it before we even sent that person out. And there's a lot of that not happening because, and it's not their fault. They just don't know any better because they haven't experienced the things that we've experienced. I mean, we're all like early 2000s, got in the business, if not sooner. And that is sometimes experience is your best teacher because when you make a mistake, you don't ever make it again.
Correct. You've seen it. You've done it. You know what I mean? And you've lived it. And sometimes there's a lot to be said for experience.
For sure.
You know, no offense to the other companies that do these, call-in type, companies, but they just don't have it. They're trained, and I've said this before, they're trained to sell. They're not trained to understand how a loan is put together. They're trained to write applications. They get paid upon written applications, not closings.
Exactly.
There's a huge difference. You want to work with someone who gets paid when it closes.
We all get paid when it closes.
Right.
No one makes money other than maybe the appraiser and the home inspector and all those other people doing it.
But you can write one and it not close.
We see
and that's
that.
what happens.
And we're talking like 75% of the families out there, they're a piece of cake. It's those other 25%.
It's a piece of cake to make a cake.
248-539-9797. If you're driving out there in a stick shift and it's your first time, you might want to give us a call at Capital Mortgage Funding. We'll teach you all about it. Home
Maybe they need to
ownership.
concentrate.
Right when we come back.
Hi, we're brought to you by the good people at 5 Iron Golf. Lines winners preseason opener 21-16 over the G-Men. Nate Seftel struggled a couple interceptions. Third quarter, though, Maurice Alexander, 95-yard punt return for a score that turned it around. Jamison Williams, targeted 6 times, caught a couple passes, had one drop of a long pass. Did make a nice grab and a 2-point conversion. Jahmyr Gibbs, 6 carries for 19 yards. Julian Acquire, 3 to lines, 5 count 'em sacks. Tigers follow Boston 5-2. Kerry Carpenter goes deep, just 2 hits for the Tigers. It'll be Matt Manning today at Fenway Park. 4:10 the first pitch against the Red Sox right here on the ticket. First leg of the FedEx Cup playoffs at the St. Jude Championship. Lucas Glover leads by 1 over Jordan Spieth. That's at the midway point. At the Ticket Update desk, I'm Jeff Lesson. For more 97.1, the ticket or Odyssey.com.
All right, welcome back to the show. It's a Hardcore Mortgage Real Estate Business Show in our 23rd and a half year. Yeah, we're coming up on 24 years, giving you great information, buying a house, selling a house, mortgages, real estate. We do appraisal, title insurance, bring in those divorce attorneys. We do it all here at 248-539-9797, always giving you great information. I'm Harvey Freed. She's Becky Ellie, Lisa Lawson with Capital Mortgage Funding. And, of course, Hope Williams joins us from Keller Williams. You must be related to the owner, so they give you special treatment,
I get that all the time. I wish.
Of course you do. Making home ownership fun, talking about that space and stuff. Hey, we can get you that mortgage, make the space fun. I always like talking about the cool stuff about home ownership. Like, I got this little tiny house with my girlfriend, and it's her place, and we put a new roof on it, and it's so great now. And maybe we'll redo the bathroom, and of course our landscape is super tight. But Hope, that's what makes home ownership really fun. Forget about all the great neighbors I have. Maybe some of them are listening. But, home ownership is so cool. The pride of home ownership. When I come home tonight or today, that green grass, it makes me excited. I'm good.
Yeah, and you know what? It is the personal stamp that you put on the home that really makes a difference for you, right? Mm-hmm. Things that you can't do in apartments, you can actually do. You can do whatever you want to the inside of your home. We waited, and this is something this is an overflow from the previous conversation. When we purchased our home, we waited 2 years because we wanted to see the way we lived in the home.
Right.
So I always advise people, even though you are looking, of course, everybody wants their dream home. I do too. But if you're buying a pre-existing home, it's very unlikely you're going to get everything on your list. But before you make major changes, I always suggest to people, wait a couple of years, at least one, so that you can see how the kids interact, how you interact.
Like that.
And you can decide what you like to tweak in the home at that point. But small things that you can do. You can create the kitchen outdoor space. It's beautiful in the summertime and it's fun. Those are the creative things that you can do in your patio, in the house. Floors make a huge difference, right? You have a choice between the carpet and the wood floors. I'm a wood floor gal myself.
Samesies.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it's small things that you can do. But I always suggest take your time and really plan it out.
It's actually great advice because people think they know what they want. They're like, I'm going to, paint. Okay, whatever. Not a big deal. But when you're talking about changing bigger things, I always tell people you don't really know what you want until you've lived in there and you understand what works for you, what flows for you. You might think that everything's perfect. And when you get there, you're like, oh my gosh, I really hate the microwave taking up counter space and I need to get one over the range. And I need, all these little things that might be important to you and you don't really discover that until you've been in the space living in it. So I don't think, I think that's probably underrated advice that people don't often give, but honestly, just waiting a year and living in it so you know exactly what you want to make it, the best home for you.
It's a working awesomeness, right? You're constantly evolving. Like I bought my second house in 2018 and there's nothing in this house that I haven't touched pretty much. I'm now just had I'm starting to do some other things to improve the functionality, but I just got done doing the outside, the hardscaping, the landscaping people. And now we're really enjoying the home because I'm doing it for me, not what my payback's going to be. And that's the other thing too, is people are wanting to make these improvements, but then they want to sell it in 2 years and they're upset they're not getting that payback. And the reality at the end of the day is you have to do what's best for you to improve the functionality of your home that you see yourself there. Right. Now, if you know you're going to be selling it in 5 years, you might not want to put the new roof on if you don't need to. You might not want to invest in the major hardscaping in the backyard if you're not going to be there for a long time and you think you're going to get an extra $50,000 because you put $50,000 of hardscape in the backyard. So
we can't promise dollar for dollar.
For sure. But you can't put a price tag on what you're doing to enjoy your own home once it is yours. And like you said, you can't put that new kitchen in the rental Nope, you can't.
No, you can't.
Change where the microwave goes in that apartment complex, but you definitely have some say in what your kitchen looks like.
Some people are tripped out about their personal freedoms. Well, when you own a home, you have the freedom to personalize and customize the house the way you want it. You create the space the way you want it and make it pretty exciting. Dedicated gym. I think Lisa's got one of those.
Yes, we do.
Johnny's getting all
My
buff.
husband works out literally 7 days a week.
Creating a cozy entertainment. Of course, Becky, we see you doing Zoomcast in your basement, in your office there, whatever you've finished there. Level of personalization. It's so
My
much
she cave.
fun to make the home the way you want to do it. And again, find that house, put those lists together. Stop clicking buttons. We always get people off of Zillow and all those places really quickly. It's a great place to check out things, but when you click that button, you just turned yourself into a number.
Yeah.
You got your name, your phone number, and your email. Guess what? Who's calling you? Is that person qualified? Do they understand that the neighborhood that you move to might really be more important than everything else, the new friendships you're going to make? And then, of course, the appreciation of the house. There's just so much more than clicking a button because the picture of the house looks good.
Yeah, I mean, and sometimes if you are on Zillow, you will get someone like, for example, Hope. Maybe it will be you
get
are
some good
blessed,
ones,
and you get
yeah.
someone like Hope on the other line. But then sometimes you don't.
Right on.
And especially if you're an out of state investor that's looking to, because there's a lot of investors coming into Michigan because Michigan is very affordable, and they are 100% reliant on you as the agent to dictate where they're living. They're, what part of metropolitan Detroit are they getting into? Where in Royal Oak are they buying? And because they don't know, but they're relying on you. And I see some of these purchase agreements come through, and you can tell they are ill-advised because I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why are we buying here? This is even what you're looking for.
Yeah.
But, you see it coming through, and, it is what it is. But there's just a lot of bad information out there sometimes.
And I'm not knocking any social media because
Yeah.
I'm on social media, but you have to be able to determine whether you want a transactional relationship with your team, which is what I call your realtor and your lender, or do you want someone who's going to help you? If you call me back, I'm going to give you a call back and you say, I need someone to work on my roof. I know who those people
Right.
are.
Yeah, I
so
love
why
that.
wouldn't I share that? And so you want to be able to, in this economy and in this world, we really have to rely on our networks, right? And so being able to go back to that person is very important. But if you have a transactional person, they're there for the transaction and they're gone.
Right.
All right, 248-539-9797. We'd love to hear from you again, the Hardcore Mortgage Real Estate Business Show. If you want to buy a house, we'll hook you up. Just call us at Capital Mortgage Funding, a 1-800-LOW-RATE, the best mortgage bank. Of course, home ownership offers stability in terms of your housing payment, which is really cool. And of course, now you're building a sense of community. But, as we talked this morning about these starter homes and people go, no, it's just not what I want. It's a little bit too much money. We're seeing more and more families, Becky, and you know it, they're hanging on to these starter homes. These that becomes their first rental property.
Yep.
And they're like, hey, I'm over here paying too much money to landlord, 100% interest rate. I'm going to keep this starter home. I'll make a little bit of cash flow on it. Maybe you can use that cash flow to help you in your next property. So things change, and that first house might end up being your first rental.
Yes, and I actually just spoke about this at a real estate office not that long ago. We were talking about some of the first-time home buyer programs. One of them is if someone is living in Detroit currently and they're looking to buy in Detroit, there's actually grant money out there where you can get $25,000. This is life-changing money that is helping people purchase homes that they never thought they could buy, let alone you're buying a $100,000 house, you're putting 20% down, and you're still having to come to the table with just $1,000, maybe if that. And it's a beautiful thing. And this particular program in Detroit also allows duplexes.
Yep.
And I
okay.
was speaking about how if I could go back and do it over again, my first home would have been a duplex. I probably would have utilized FHA financing,
smart move.
put the minimum down, rented out that second unit, fulfilled my 1-year obligation in the property should I have been so inclined and the economy and the real estate market allowed me to do so, and then kept that rental, built my real estate portfolio, and I would have moved on. These programs are here to help you build wealth in yourself. And if you can't see it, you need to get in contact with the people that can see it for you, because it is scary. It's very intimidating. And I feel like some of our life limitations are thrust on us, not even by ourselves, by other people, by life. You're afraid to make that plunge. But I assure you, when you are in line with the right people that are non-transactional, they are not setting you up for that moment right now. We are looking down the road 5 years for you to see where you want to go, because we're going to go where you grow. And these programs are here to help you.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually have a duplex in Detroit using that program right now. And they're super excited to purchase. Now, they're not going to be getting income because it's going to be two members of the same family.
Okay.
One upstairs, one downstairs in this case. So we won't have that rental income but had the bottom unit been rented out, they would have been able to use that income to qualify for that mortgage too, if it was currently occupied. There's so many things that we can do, but you got to call.
Well, they're going to have a lot of equity in there. And of course, they can do that cash out refinance, and it really changes your whole family's life.
Yes.
You guys are the queens of $25,000 grant in Detroit. There's several other programs. We'll talk about some more down payment assistance programs. And it seems as if many cities have them. We've talked about Port Huron. I saw, you know what, I don't have the list in front of me, but lots of different cities have their own individual
There's
program.
Westland, Livonia specifically.
Name them all, yeah.
And then there's
so many.
other ones where if you're not looking in these specific cities, there's the blanket $10,000 grant it's not a grant, but through the state of Michigan that you can qualify for. If you don't qualify for that, we have another one that you can
NOAA.
qualify for where there's no income limits, there's no maximum sales price. You can have a non-occupying cosigner on the loan with you.
Yep.
It's all of these things where when you have the conversation, we're not selling you soup du jour thinking that we're going to put everyone in the same box because we have one program. We are a national lender, meaning we are lending our own money. So therefore we have the flexibility. So when you're having these conversations, we're extracting the information from you. We're instantly identifying where can we put you, what's going to be the best situation for you. And we're going to give you 2 or 3 options. We're going to tell you what we feel is the best for you.
Right.
But at the end of the day, if it's never the payment, right? And 9 out of 10 times it's not the payment. We're like, oh, the interest rates are so high. People are not tripping on the payment. They're tripping on how much money they have to bring to the table.
Correct.
Alrighty, that says we're up against a quick break here, 9:40. If you're just joining us, we are giving you 1 hour again of the Hardcore Mortgage Real Estate Business Show. We want to hear from you now, 248-539-9797. We'll be right back. All righty, we are back giving you, another 20 minutes or so of the Hardcore Mortgage Real Estate Business Show. Always great information if you're buying or selling a house. Harvey Free, Becky Alley, Lisa Lawson, give you some mortgage advice. Hope Williams, giving all sorts of real estate advice. We want to get you out of that rental. That's right. Unless you own one and want to rent it out, want to get you out of that rental and definitely into your own home where you can build equity. And we see these crazy economy that we're in right now, Becky, and the trillions debt information's out there. People are overspending again. Yeah, a lot of you might have to reach in and pull that equity out of your house to consolidate debt. Now, you're going to end up getting a higher interest rate most likely than you have now because interest rates, not only this year, Becky, we got the email last week said interest rates are at a 9-month high right now. But again, don't let that deter you. One day soon, maybe next year, the year after that, one day soon, maybe they drop a little bit. Maybe they never drop, but that's okay. You got equity built in your house. Hope they
And
can
if they
use
never
that.
drop, at that point, you have the low rate compared to everybody else if they continue to go up.
Yeah.
You got to start
Great.
somewhere, people.
Yes. And the
now.
refinance, refinances are on an uptick. And I don't care what anyone has to say. I see it. I see the trends. I see them nationally. I see them right in our backyard because people have overextended themselves and they don't hesitate on these credit cards like we were talking earlier in the show. But they, oh my God, my interest rate on my mortgage, like stop the noise because you have to look at it the dollar for dollar. And if you can do a debt consolidation loan, use the equity. And truth be told, home equity lines, we can do those too. We don't really that's not our forte, but we can do them. But you're looking at double digits on a home equity line. People will not hesitate to get a double digit home equity line, but they're going to clinch their pearls over a 6% interest rate on their mortgage. Like it doesn't make any sense. And I'm doing several cash out refinance right now. Some of them are divorce situations. Everything's different. However, one of them is they're overextended. We're saving them $500 a month.
Huge.
It's huge, right? Because they're paying these 20% interest credit cards and
Or 29%
Yep,
or
and-
32%.
But we're in a long-term plan. Why?
Right.
Because we know how to identify it. We know what we're doing. We know how to set you up for success. It's not a dictatorship. We're not going to say you must do this. It is your decision ultimately, but we're going to provide the best situation financially for you. So if you do have a low interest rate right now, good for you. But what does that mean if you can't afford your other bills? It doesn't matter. Or if you have a house, I was talking to someone else. I could go on and on for days, but there's someone that has a 3% interest rate, but their taxes have went up so much. They're at like $10,000 for these property taxes. And they're saying, well, we can't move because our interest rate's so good. I'm like, you can't afford it because of your taxes. Who cares what your interest rate is? You have priced yourself out of this market because you jumped in because the rates were so good. You over budgeted yourself and now the taxes are what they are. And now you are overextended. Who cares what your interest rate is? But these are,
You're going to lose your house.
Yes, these are real life situations. So sell that house for them. It made sense for them to now get into a property that they can afford because the interest rate allowed them to afford more, but that didn't change the property taxes. And people do not take these things into account when they're out there like trying to buy these $1 million homes sometimes.
Let me throw it out there. Hey, we had a couple callers in there looking to talk football, baseball. Of course, I want to talk about that too, but Pat Caputo will be coming up with sports right after us here. And, of course, Tiger Baseball later this afternoon. But if the Lions hit the field, and it's getting to be a really cool vibe here. We talked about affordability in Southeast Michigan and Detroit. It really is, folks. We're not making this up. Hope, at the break, you said, Harvey, doesn't it tell you something? People from out of state, Texas, California, they're buying here. They want these rentals. And I had a guy, sure enough, he's like, Harvey, I'll buy up any inland lake, anything on inland lake. I'm going to Airbnb them. I'm going to make my money here.
The smart money is on our state, guys.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yay,
telling
I
you,
love that.
because I have lived in California, I've lived in Florida, and I'm just telling you, our market is so much better.
Yep.
We have so many options for working class people. And if you want to have the benefit of home ownership, this is where people are coming.
Yeah.
They're actually calling in to people like me. I've worked with a few investors. I do work with investors. They're Airbnb properties and they're making money.
Cash flow.
Yeah. And so why wouldn't you buy a property in your own market when so many opportunities are here for outsiders to come? You have to realize where the gold is.
Yeah, because people from the outside are coming in because they recognize it. And at the end of the day, sometimes renting does make sense for you, but it's not the long-term plan. And no matter what, you're paying someone's mortgage, whether it's your apartment's mortgage, whether it's your rental's mortgage, or it's your own. You have to decide whose mortgage are you paying? Are you paying someone else's? Are you paying your own? And, like that cliche of like, marry marry the house, date the rate kind of thing. Let's just talk about divorcing rent for good instead, right? Because that's the truth of the matter is you need to invest in yourself because the people that they have the equity. And if they want to right size, they want to upgrade, they have the equity in the homes to do so.
It's so funny to me. People don't think twice about paying rent, right? And renting a property, going to an apartment. But would you pay somebody else's car payment out of the goodness of your heart?
Wow.
Would you be like, here, let me write you a $500 check for your car? Because that's what you're doing. You are literally paying something for someone else.
That's a mind shift moment.
It is a mind shift. And I feel that way. And I say that to my clients. And they're always like, well, you really didn't think about it like that. And I said, well, you should. Because investing in yourself is so much more important. You're investing in your future, your financial future, your family's financial future. And they just don't think about it that way. Rent is just so socially acceptable that I don't think it kind of sinks in until you have to reframe it and you explain to people, well, good, if you're going to pay someone else's rent, pay my car payment.
Yeah. And the truth is too, and like to kind of do like a mind shift moment as well, is that's why there's more down payment assistance programs available than there's ever been in the history of ever. Why? Because they understand that affordability has become an issue and they're trying to make sure that people are investing in themselves because like you talked about, people from the outside in are coming in and they are jacking up the rent payment. So now you have people that can't even afford the rent in some states like New York, forget about it. You're getting a closet for $3,000 a month.
Yeah.
That's
You're
what
right.
happens.
On the
Michigan
money.
they're going to start pushing us up here.
It's already started.
Yeah, because if you are not investing and you're part of this rental situation, they're going to make their money no matter what.
How many renters have gotten notice in the past year their rent's going up? I had a client call me.
Yep.
She pays $560. It's going up to $800.
Or they're getting the notice that their landlord is selling. And now
Correct,
you
yeah.
have 30 days because you were
you rent a
sitting,
house, yeah.
because you're being complacent and now you're struggling to find a program that you're going to fit because you now need to find a house in 30 days. I have 2 of them just this month.
Yeah.
We're trying to like hurry up and struggle to find them a property. Got them pre-approved, thank goodness, because we had the conversation sooner, but at the same time, like you have to be always prepared.
And you
because,
don't. Sorry.
No,
about
I'm
that.
just saying it's something you can't control. So control what you can control.
Yeah, and you don't want to be in the foot race at that point
Yeah.
because it is really challenging with this being a seller's market and the shortages that we're experiencing. And I'm so glad you brought that up because I get that phone call a lot. I'm about to be out of I want to go look for a house. And I said, well, what is your situation? I do consultations. Excuse me. I do consultations. And the scariest thing is to hear someone say 30 days.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
I'm like, that's almost unrealistic. You know what I
It's
mean?
completely
Unless you've got cash,
unrealistic.
it's unrealistic.
I mean, you can. I mean, you're going to get those one-offs where you can flip
Yeah,
it
but that
pretty
means you got to
quickly.
find a property and get an offer accepted the first time you go out looking, realistically, And it's not that it can't happen.
But
but
when
it
you're with
doesn't
someone
often
like Hope,
happen.
I know she knows how to convert pretty
And
quickly. So
that's right. And the one thing I'm going to say though is that's where the planning comes in.
Yeah.
If you are just thinking about buying, just go speak to someone.
Yeah.
Because that's where the vision starts. It goes from dream to reality. If you just put one foot in front of the other.
Yeah. And it's not about me or Lisa or Hope or Harvey when you're talking to us. It's about you. Okay. And you're going to know that when you're having the conversations because it sounds different. You feel different after you're having the conversation. We're not here to sell you. I don't care if you buy a house now or in 5 years from now, but I care about setting you up for success when you are ready.
Right.
Keep it
100%.
status quo. Pay off this credit card. Identify where the problem is so that way when you are ready, can come out with your guns a-blazing and get that offer accepted very, very quickly, whether it's now or in 3 years or 6 months or whatever your timeline is. I'm not here to dictate your timeline, but I am here to help you, and we're here to help you find the path to
Hey,
get
you
there.
makes me
hey, you
happier
guys,
than
wait a
someone
minute
said,
here.
oh.
John Slaz, my buddy, he just sent me a text. He says, Harvey, stop scaring away the renters. All right. Yeah, exactly. He's got a great rental in Berkeley. If you guys are looking for it, just call my office. I'll hook you up with John. He's got an unbelievable rental opportunity. All right, there you go.
Well, sometimes rent makes sense. Like
totally
if you know
does.
that you're moving, you're here, your work transfers you, you're only going to be here for a year or two. Maybe you don't want to invest in a property because you're not going to be here long enough. We're not saying that all rentals are bad. There's definitely
You've got to start
times-
somewhere.
Right. Doctors come in, they're on assignment for 2 years at the hospital.
Yeah,
Totally.
That's what I'm saying. Like whether it's 5 years,
Right.
6 years, freaking 6 months, whatever, right?
But you got to have a plan.
Yeah. I mean, I have a client right now that's buying for the first time and she's been renting for 40 years because
Yeah.
she just was afraid. And so we identified, what are you afraid of? And it was because they had a history of foreclosure and, someone foreclosed in her house or like in her family like decades ago, but
Yeah.
that stigma was attached to her and she somehow
And those
associated
things,
that with her.
They
And
can be scary.
yeah, and the thought of that failure scared the life out of her to not even, to try it herself. And I was like, you're not that. That is not you. That is not your story. We're here to change the narrative.
Hope you said it's scary. No doubt about that. Lots of education, required knowledge involved in financing your home. How about financing a car? Folks, I did the dealership tour yesterday, getting an oil change. Holy smokes. Yeah. These Fed funds rates that have gone up, and up has really been, well, an indirect correlation to mortgage rates, but we've seen those go up, obviously. But the car rates, again, if you're going to finance a car, they've gone up if you're going to lease a car. And put that into your plan. Again,
Yes.
when you talk to real
glad you
individuals,
brought that up.
real mortgage bankers that have these great conversations instead of clicking buttons, we can talk to you about your overall financial situation. Hope this isn't just buying a house now. Your lease comes up, and all of a sudden to lease a car, it's $500-$600.
Buying houses and cars literally go hand in hand. I don't
Yeah.
know why. I don't know
They
why,
do.
but it does.
Yeah.
But please wait to buy your car.
Thank you.
If you're under contract, don't do it until we close.
Right.
I've had this situation occur and it's the worst. But I will say this, as far as I'm concerned, buying a house, and it's not just because I'm a realtor, is the best investment. It's the biggest thing you'll make, but it's the best investment you'll make. I know everyone comes out of college and they want this sweet car when they drive away, right?
Right.
But I think if you think a little bit differently, shift your mind, that's where affordability comes in. Put the car dreams off until, I know we're in the Motor City, but put the car dreams off until you get your house, and then
Yep.
you can get what you want.
I think I signed my name on a Charger Hellcat yesterday, just waiting on an oil change there. But
Well, okay, so the other thing is like, people are also co-signing for their children on these car loans. They have
Yeah.
like 5 leases in their name.
Oh, no.
And you're not thinking about it, right? And then you go to get pre-approved. If your car note is 10% of your gross monthly income, that is a direct hit on what you can afford. And people don't think about it till they're getting pre-approved. And I'm like, whose cars are these?
Right. And my favorite is, oh, my kid gives me the money and then I pay it. And I can't exclude a payment if the kid is paying
Great
you
last
I
back.
had a
advice.
parent that had to pay off the car just
Yeah.
so they could buy a house.
Right.
And that's just the reality. So when you're
Talk to a loan
car
officer.
shopping, right, it doesn't need, you don't buy a house and a car at the same time. Have the conversation with your loan officer in advance so you know what to do.
all right, guys, that's going to wrap up our show. Again, lots of energy and lots of great information. If you want real professionals to help you with a mortgage, 1-800-LOW-RATE, the best mortgage banker over Capital Mortgage. Hope Williams, one of the best real estate agents.
Thank you for
Thank
coming.
you for
Look out.
having me.
thank you.
Oh, always. She'll look out for your best needs, that's for sure. Give us a call, 1-800-LOW-RATE, and we'll get you set up with all the great real estate agents that we know right here in Southeast Michigan and across the United States. All right, we know Pat Caputo. He's coming up with sports. Keep it here on 97.1 The Ticket. We'll see you next Saturday.